Greetings, family. Sister Shanice in the house. Welcome, welcome to another Wednesday show. It's the Sister Shanice show. Oh my gosh, what a show I've got lined up for you today, family. Thanks in advance for all your support. Thanks for your encouraging messages. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Okay, let me grab the link so that I can be sharing the link with the family so that they know exactly where they need to come in order to be part of today's show. Yes, family, we are whizzing through our new series, and I tell you, family, the deeper I dig, the more I uncover, and I am just enjoying the digging. And so I certainly hope that you've been enjoying the new series as well. Right, now that I've got the link, let me take it over to WhatsApp so that I can be sharing it to family members and friends. So how have you been, family? I certainly hope that all is well with you. Certainly hope that you have all risen in power, risen in strength, and risen to accomplish much today, and that you are working your way through all of your goals, your aspirations, and everything that you've set for yourself. Yeah, certainly hope that, you are winning and accomplishing all of your goals, and that, if there have been challenges along the way, I certainly hope that you have been able to overcome those challenges, okay, and not allow them to get the better of you. Yeah, behind the scenes here, I have all sorts of challenges all the time, but we just keep soldiering on regardless. Just like right now, it's still spinning, so that I can't even post the link, but I'm waiting, and hopefully it'll sort itself out pretty soon. Okay. When there's a lot going on my computer, this is what happens, but I do get there eventually. So family, if you are joining me for the first time, welcome, welcome. It's a privilege, it's an honor. I'm delighted to have you in the house. When you come through the door, please do just give me a hi, give me a thumbs up, let me know that you're in the house. I'll just want to welcome you. Let me know where you are watching me from as well. Where in the world are you? Are you watching me from Ghana, Jamaica, America, somewhere in Europe? I know we have viewers and supporters all around the globe, and wherever you are most welcome indeed. Let's go over to the chat and see who the early birds are. Yes, we've got some early bird family members in the house. We've got Debuff in the house saying good afternoon. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. We've got Brother Kwame Aboje in the house. Tenda Mwari, beloved. Great to have you in the house as always. We've got Sister Verna, the coach, in the house. I was just talking about the importance of, working towards accomplishing the goals that you set for yourself. And if you need help in doing that, Sister Verna is the one to help you. Just hook her up at Verna, the coach. Yes, thank you so much for looking forward to another enlightening show today. I hope I fulfill your expectations, but I tell you, I am just so excited about what I'm going to be bringing to you today. We've got Sister Betty in the house saying Hotep from North Carolina. Welcome, Sister Betty from North Carolina. All the time you've been with us, I didn't know that that's where you were in the world. So as you come through the door, please do like the video in advance. Give me a thumbs up. I would much appreciate love that. Glad to have, yes, beloved Brother Kwame Aboji. Thank you for reminding us. We have Mama Adawa in the house. Yes, that's the name that Sister Betty has been given by our beloved family here. Welcome, Mama Adawa. How are you enjoying your new name? Certainly hope that you are. Okay, the link has come through. So let me start sharing that link. And yeah, please do hit me up in the chat. Let me know how has your strong been? Some say weak, we say strong. Certainly hope that it's been a great one I spoke to our beloved brother, Dr. Winters, a few days ago, and he's making good progress with his health. So keep the healing vibrations going his way. He was just so uplifted in his spirit when I said to him that, the audience was just willing him back to good health and was sending healing vibrations his way. It was as if, he was just feeling the energy that we were sending, family. So let's keep sending him the healing vibrations, those healing energies, so that it can touch everywhere it needs to touch and bring our beloved Baba Clyde Winters back to full health and strength. He's got so much more to give, and we want to be the recipients of his great works. I know you're all as inspired by him as I am. He just continues to encourage and inspire the works that I do, and I am deeply, deeply grateful and deeply, deeply honored as well to have him as my mentor. This has obviously been something that has been inside of me, laying dormant for all of this time, all of these decades. Just imagine, that I had all these research skills and capabilities and potential that was laying dormant inside of me, and that, it could have been awakened through, getting the opportunity to research the knowledge of our history, that had it not been for Dr. Clyde Winters, who came into my life, and just saw the potential and encouraged and motivated me, to actually bring out that research talent there. And had it not been for him, I probably I wouldn't be on this leg of my journey. And it's been an exciting one. So I am so, so grateful to Dr. Clyde Winters, and along with yourselves, willing him in the spirit realm back to good health. And let's hope that he does come through very soon indeed. Okay, so family members, you come through the door, please give me a thumbs up. Let us know that you're in the house. I am rearing to go, just sending out a few posts, and then we are going to be rolling. Let's have a look at the phone and see if I can send them out quicker via the phone. Okay, here we go. In a little while, family, when I start the presentation, to those of you who are new to this channel, manage storage. Oh my gosh, I've got too much stuff on my phone. Let me just delete a little something here so that I can be sending through some of these messages. I'll come back to my books in a little while, but today we're going to be looking at the Black origins of Iran. Family, this is a story that they have been trying to bury. And, what's really exciting and interesting about our ancestors is that, they were just so phenomenal and so incredibly talented, artistic, creative, full of culture and tradition, so much so that they have left a huge amount of evidence of their greatness behind. And as the archaeologists dig, they keep uncovering and finding evidence of our former greatness, and they try to hide it. But, if we are persistent and if we dig deep enough and we do the research, we can actually find evidence of our history that goes back to prehistoric times. We can find evidence of our history that goes back over 100,000 years ago. Imagine. And I'm going to be bringing you some of that evidence today that goes back tens of thousands of years, possibly hundreds of thousands of years, because, I have to use their radiocarbon dating system to determine the age of the artifacts that they are finding. We don't have our own, unfortunately, radiocarbon dating system. And so, you know, we just have to rely to a large extent on what we are told. And so, yeah, hopefully, family, they're not too far off, but quite often, you know, when I come across these contradictions, I just know that as a people, we are much, much older, and our artifacts, I am sure, tends to be much, much older than they actually date our history. But, you know, the evidence is there. In time, we will have our own means to do our own radiocarbon dating. And when we do have, we'll be able to get the true timescales, you know, of some of these artifacts and how long we've been on this earth for. So there's so much evidence that they've been trying to bury. And I've got some beautiful, beautiful images of some of the artifacts that I've managed to find. And as I said, I'm excited about bringing it to you today. And I know you're going to enjoy it. So for those of you who's joining us for the first time, my name is Sista Shanice. I'm the host of this platform. Thank you so, so much for joining me today. Certainly hope that you will be enlightened and inspired. And as a result, you know, that you will come back and return to this platform and also share the knowledge that hopefully you will get from tuning in today. I'm going to go back to the chat in a little while, just sending out, as you can see here, a few notices with the link so that family members can easily just click the link and join the discussion today. When I used to use, what would they call it? StreamYard. I used to get the link in advance, and so I'd be able to just send out the link. But because I use Zoom, I was having so many problems with StreamYard, but because I use Zoom, I don't get the link until the show actually goes live, hence why I'm just posting it now to a few people. Okay, well, let me just leave it there because, as always, I've got so much to get through, and there's never enough time to do so. Time just runs too quickly on this show. So let me quit this package here, and that way hopefully it will free up a little bit of memory and my computer will be able to move a little bit more quickly. All right, so that's gone. Right, let's go over to the chat. Oh, we've got quite a few messages in the house. Thank you so much for posting your messages. I can see that Sister Verna's listening. Yes, from London, Hotep, Mama Adawa, great to have you in the house. We've got Sister Karen in the house from the USA, the United States of America. Welcome, beloved. And she says, Sister Shanice and the B1 followers, the Black first, the beautiful ones, the original people. Yes, B1, Black first. We've got, who else have we got in the house? Sister Betty in the house, D. Beth's in the house. Brother Kwame Aboje's in the house. Sister Karen's in the house. Okay, you're coming through the door. Yes, rising up. Yes, Sister Karen says that, oops, it's just, where's it gone? Oh, where's it just gone? I was just about to read your message. I saw Dr. Clyde's name and it disappeared. Okay, I'm sending more healing vibes. Yes, thank you for the research, Dr. Clyde Winters. Yes, please send in those, keep sending those healing vibrations. Brother Kwame Rogers says, it's the fact that Africans are the originators of languages. Yes, algebra. Yes, medicine. Yes, law. Yeah, philosophy. Yeah, architecture. Yes, and so much more. Yes, indeed. You don't know. You don't know. Okay, I'm going to start nice and early today so that, you know, we can cruise through our presentation. And let me just close a couple of these. Course, yeah, I'm just closing a couple of these packages that I've got open and I don't need to have open. So as I said, they're just taking up memory space, and sometimes it just gets in the way of the flow of things. So Yeah, closing them all now because I just want to be able to concentrate on giving you this presentation. Okay, why are you verifying WhatsApp? I've closed WhatsApp because that takes up quite a bit of bandwidth. Okay, hopefully that'll get sorted out in a very short while. Alrighty, are you ready, family? Are you ready for today's presentation? Let me hear you say, yeah. Yes, are you ready? Okay, certainly hope so. Right, let me prepare to share the screen so that you, the family, can get the presentation. Let's go over to the settings. I don't have any sound today, so let's always jumps off. So let's do that twice. I'm sure there must be a sequencing of events that makes this thing work first time, but I'm used to having to do it twice. So let's see what comes up this time. Right, let's go to slideshow. There we go. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm getting ready to deliver today's presentation, family. And the title of the presentation is The Black Origins of Iran. Let me check the screen to make sure that the presentation is coming through okay your end. It looks okay. My end is looking fine to me. Hopefully you're hearing me okay as well, and that we are good to go. It looks that way. It looks that way. So, yes, here we go. Thank you so much, family, for joining me this evening. Sister Shanice in the house for another really interesting and exciting show. It's going to be focusing on our history in the region of Iran. We're going to be looking at that time when the region of Iran was black. So some of you, it'll be a big surprise to know that, but I know to most of you who've been following this platform for some time, it won't be a surprise at all. So this is a story that they have been trying to bury. But as I was saying, the more they try to bury our history, the more our ancestors just keep pushing the evidence up above ground. Yeah, the minute they dig and they think they found something maybe related to their history, they find that it's something from the prehistoric times that is part of our African history. And so today we're going to be looking in the region of Iran. As you can see on my flyer here, I feature in the middle there a bowl, which is classified as a prehistoric painted pot. And this was found in the region of Iran alongside the one on the left-hand side. And these pots are dated to be over 7,000 years old. And I've got a picture there of one of the beautiful Nubian queens who is walking with the bowl on her head. And it's very much the tradition across the African continent to carry, things on our heads. And so she's carrying a bowl on her head. It may have water, it may have grains, it may have fruits, or, it's got something inside of it. And that is a modern picture. And right next to our beautiful Nubian queen, we have an ancient bowl, which is over 7,000 years old. It's dated between 5,000 to 4,500 BC. And wow. When you start doing the digging and looking into our history, family, you will realize, without a shadow of a doubt, that we have been told a version of history that basically reduces us to the last few hundred years of existence, to the last few hundred years of our existence. But it's a narrative, yeah, that centers around it's a narrative that they keep pushing that centers around our enslavement. And in so doing, and by focusing and centering our history on those last few hundred years of our existence here around enslavement, basically they then just ignore the evidence that exists of the tens of thousands, and in some instances, hundreds of thousands of years of our history that came before our enslavement. Yeah. And what we're going to be doing on this show today is we're going to be returning to the evidence that exists of our ancient prehistoric reign in that region. Okay, we're going to be looking at the archaeological evidence, we're going to be looking at the genetics, we're going to look at the art, we're going to look in the region of the land itself. And when we start examining the artifacts and the archaeological evidence, there's going to be a very different picture that emerges from the one that we are taught in the school, colleges, and universities. Okay. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of April. Sista Shanice in the house, and great to have you watching me live and direct. If you're not watching me live and it's a playback, you can catch me live on a Wednesday evening or afternoon, depends where you are in the world. You can catch me 7 p.m. GMT time, 8 p.m. British Summer Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live. Okay, family? Let's go. Let's do this. Also, just in case you don't know, I'm also the author of 6 books, and you can support my works by buying a book. All these books here are available on Amazon. These 5 books are available on Amazon. This book here, which is a tribute to Marcus Mosiah Garvey, is available via my Gumroad account, free of charge. Okay, that one is free of charge. It's a gift from me to you. All of these are gifts, really, because what I'm charging for these books can't pay me for the time and the labor that I have put into writing these books. Okay, but I've done the works because I want to leave them behind as a legacy to future generations of our incredible history, accomplishments, and who we are as a people. Okay, so this one here, tribute to Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Download your copy free of charge and share. If you want to leave a donation when you go there, you can. If not, just put 0 and download anyway. It's all good. And go to Amazon to support my works. My most recent book is this one here, entitled Hidden in the Shadows of Ancient Britain, an Erased African History Restored. And the reason why I'm suggesting that you get a copy of this book as a gift is because it includes an incredible amount of informative Black British history, what you're not going to learn in their educational institutions. And once you give a loved one a gift, a book as a gift, you're giving them the gift of knowledge. And the gift of knowledge is timeless, it's empowering, and it will last beyond the moment. Okay, so make one of my books the gift that you give to your loved one for, as an anniversary gift, as an Earth Day gift, as a I love you gift, as a thank you gift, whatever the reason for making that gift. The gift of knowledge is timeless. Once you have acquired that knowledge, nothing can take it from you. And so, go beyond just a gift which is for the moment and give a gift which is going to last a lifetime. And if it's not my book, make it a book from one of the other Black researchers, historians, and writers. For example, our beloved Dr. Clive Winters has over 50 books on Amazon. You can support his works by buying a book. It's just so encouraging. It really is, when we see that you are supporting our works in that way. So please don't let our labor be in vain. And thank you so much for your support. And then I hear you say, I've got your book. Thank you so much for getting a copy of my book. And how about getting another one as a gift? Thank you in advance, family, for your support. Okay, so we are now on episode 11, The Hidden African History of Iran. We're continuing in that region because there is just so much that they have tried to bury that I just keep uncovering that I want to share with you. So in today's episode, family, you're going to discover that Arabia was never separate from Africa. It was never separate from Africa, but the region that they called Arabia or the Middle East was part of Africa's original story. And that's going to become so clear to you in this episode. Let me just check to make sure all is okay in the chat. Yes, Kwame, I'll big up Brother Errol for you. Rise up, rise up. Thank you, Karen, for sharing on Facebook. Oh, more love to you. Thank you. Brother Kwame says, big up to Sister Shanice and her wonderful books. I am blessed to have 2 copies. I'm honored to know that you have 2 copies. Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen, for reminding everyone to like and share this platform. Thank you so much. Welcome, Golden Heart, listening to us from Las Vegas. Welcome, welcome. We've got Jairus in the house as well. So you can't unlearn our truth. The facts, the facts speak for themselves. You're welcome, Jairus. Thank you so much. So in this episode today, we're going to be moving a little deeper and we're going to be presenting information. I'm going to be presenting information that's going to connect Africa to the Arabia. And it's going to be a connection that goes far beyond our recent history and stretches back at least 100,000 years. And you're going to see that Arabia was not separate from Africa, but it was actually a gateway. Arabia, the region of Arabia, was a bridge through which our ancestors actually moved, a bridge that they crossed and settled, and where they shaped, a new region very similar to how they'd shaped their societies on the continent of Africa. And there's going to be archaeological evidence and archaeogenetic evidence to confirm this. It's not just me saying it. I'm going to be presenting you with the evidence, and you're going to see that, the diversity among us as Africa on the continent was brought to the region of Iran and the whole of the Middle East. The evidence is going to be there in terms of our culture, our traditions. We're going to be tracing the evidence in today's show. And you're going to see that the African population did indeed move from the continent into the Near East, the land on the continent of Africa and across the Red Sea to the so-called region that they call the Middle East was pretty much the same 100,000 years or so ago. That Arabia region was once lush, it was fertile, it was alive, and it was basically a continuation of Africa's environment. And this was before the Red Sea was actually separated and the landmass was separated, which probably happened, millions of years ago. All right, so in this episode, stay with me as we examine the evidence. I'm going to be looking at some ancient rock art in Iran. We're going to be looking at prehistoric pottery. We're going to be looking at some symbolic designs, archaeological sites, in particular the one of Cheshmeh-Ali with its artifacts, and these burials that are just going to speak for themselves of our organized life that we had tens of thousands of years ago. We're going to explore, the culture and historical connections. There's a book that I was reading in preparation for today, and I learned a lot from that. It's called Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam. And that is a book that makes you ask more questions, deeper questions about identity, about origins, and about continuity as well, all right? Because when we start reading these sorts of books, we realize that, you know, it's not just about the past, but what's really important is that we have an understanding that Africa was not on the edge of the ancient world, but that Africa was the center of the ancient world. And it was from Africa that the movement happened across the globe. And we have been globetrotting over these last 11 episodes, you know. See if you can remember some of the countries that we have looked at over the last previous 10 episodes. Just drop them in the chat. You know, can you remember where we've been trotting across the globe and where we have been in terms of providing the evidence of our ancient ancestors? So I look for you to drop that in the chat because it's not just about our past. We have got to realize as Africans that our ancestors, they were the center of development, civilization, the movement of a people across the globe. They left evidence of their culture, their traditions, and who they were wherever they went. And the stories are there. Their stories are there, just waiting for us to uncover them and to remember them. All right. So here's a copy of the book, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam by Dr. Wesley Muhammad. Let me just take a quick look in the chat, see if anyone's mentioned where we've been globetrotting. Yeah, oh, rise up. We've got the Kashiba in the house from Maryland, USA. Rise up, rise up. Great to have you in the house. Brother Kwame reminds us that Baba Malcolm said, for all our studies, history is best qualified to reward our research. Rise up, rise up. Thomas is in the house, sorry. And he says, Shanice, those lands of the Mideast were lands of the Semites, not black. Moreover, the Persians, invaders of ancient Egypt. Keep it locked. You're going to learn something today, Thomas. Yes, that's what we've been taught. We've been taught, you know, that the people who were the original people of the land were not Africans, but you're going to see from the evidence today that what we have been taught has been a lie from the pit of hell. Yes, my brother Kwame, he done know that we've been everywhere in the world, from Bangkok to Moscow. That's right. Can you remember the places where we've been over the last 10 episodes, which are some of the countries that we visited and looked at, you know, the monuments and evidence of our Black ancestors staring us back in the face? Let me know if you can remember. So anyway, in this particular book, it actually talks about the fact that Arabia served as a key gateway for our ancestors who moved from Africa and dispersed outwards. And it also talks about the archaeogenetics that show that modern human diversity traces back to a migration from Africa to the Middle East. So check that book out. It talks about the migration of us as Africans from Africa to the Middle East. And it actually identifies and describes two main Black racial types, okay? Which is really important, especially for, you know, our brothers like Thomas, for example, because, you know, sometimes you can obscure our history by just giving the people a name like Semites, you know? But if you don't know how they describe themselves and what they were like, you're not going to know who you're talking about. And so in this book, when it talks about Arabia, when it talks about the migration of Africans from Africa into the region of the Middle East. And remember, we were the first people to populate that region. When our ancestors migrated out of Africa and populated the Middle East, there were no other races around at that time. the Caucasian race is very, very new in terms of our history. Our history goes back hundreds of thousands of years, possibly millions of years. The Caucasians, they came onto the scene around about 1,700 years ago, something like that, maximum. And this is them who say that, not me. All right. So when we talk about ancient times and ancient history, when we talk about prehistoric times, when we talk about the Stone Age, the Paleolithic era, Neolithic era, we're talking about Africans, irrespective of the names that have been given to the people of the land. Yeah. And in this book, and this is what's good about this book, it actually gives us a description of the people that it's talking about. All right. And it says that it actually identifies two main Black racial types from Africa. There's the broad type, yeah, and he describes the broad type as Negroid with dark skin, broad nose, woolly hair. So let's bring that type in. There we go. Looking like our Dr. Winters. The Negroid type with dark skin, broad nose, and woolly hair. And we've got the elongated type, the type with dark skin, narrow head, and straight hair. And here we have the images of the two types of Africans that is being talked about during ancient times in this particular book. And these two general types of Africans are mainly the types that you're going to find that dispersed from Africa and populated most of the globe, okay? Some people try and introduce a third type from Africa, and they are, you know, the San-looking people, the Nelson Mandela, flat face, round features, fairer skin type people. Then some would suggest actually that they are, you know, just one of the two types that was mixed with one of the other species that was in the region, that came into the region later on in our existence. But I dealt with that in an entirely different video that you'll have to go back and watch if you want to look at, you know, where white people came from. So these are the two types of Africans that are basically associated with what they call sub-Saharan Africa. And you've got the elongated type, which is mainly linked to East Africa. And remember, India was part of Africa as well. So you've got the East Africa, Indian side, Asian side of Africa. And this is the dark skin, long elongated face type. And then you've got the broad face type. And both these types are considered variations, it says, of a single Black stock. The elongated type showing a closer affinity to Asian Arabian populations, okay? So if you were to lighten his features, you could be deceived into thinking that maybe you're looking at a Caucasian because of the straightest nose, yeah? But, you know, this is the type of African that we see in ancient times that were mainly all over East Africa. They migrate from East Africa through to North Africa, across Egypt, and in the Neolithic era, branched out across Asia and the Middle East, and some found their way to Europe as well, okay? Now, this little piece of relic, this little piece of artifacts goes back over 7,000 years to 5,000 BC. And this was actually found at the archaeological site of Cheshmeh-Ali in Iran. It's evidence of the Black racial types that existed back then. And as you can see, it's depicted in the art. So this is a piece of a pottery shard. You know, I showed you in the first slide the image of that pot. And we had loads of pots and vessels and jugs and jars, you know, and our people would paint them beautifully. And this here is a piece of art on one of these pottery shards. And you can see that it's kind of reflecting the culture of the time of who the original inhabitants were. Because, you know, they were depicting themselves. You can see, you know, from the beautiful figures that they're obviously women and they're holding hands. And this is how they've depicted themselves on that jar. And this particular image dates back, as I said, about 7,000 years. Wow, 7,000 years ago, our people were, you know, painting and designing these beautiful images on pieces of ceramic, you know. So this is what we call a prehistoric piece of artifacts, and it's depicting some traditional African dancers or young ladies holding hands, you know, and if you want to see the original, you can go to the Louvre Museum in Paris, which is where it's presently located. But the archaeologists that uncovered it, they actually found it at a site that they call the Cheshmeh-Ali site. And that is in modern day southwestern part of Iran, okay, Tehran. So it's what they call the Cheshmeh-Ali ware, a fine transitional chalcolithic pottery, and it's a tradition that's known for its reddish orange clay and dark stylized painted design. So if you go digging up the foundations of your house and you find bits of pottery shards with these sorts of painted images on it, you may have just uncovered a piece of artifacts, a stylistic piece of artifacts that goes back thousands of years. Okay, so this is a beautiful piece. It could be that they're just holding hands. It could be as part of a ritual. It could be as part of a dance, you know, a community dance. But for this period, it's a beautiful, beautiful fragment from the pottery. Let's have a look at a couple more pieces of masterpieces from the historic era. So these are masterpieces of prehistoric art. And, you know, paintings are not new to our ancestors. We've been creating paintings that reflect our environment, that reflect who we are. You know, we've been doing paintings with all sorts of geometric shapes on them for at least tens of thousands of years. And so when we see the works of our ancestors in the tombs of Egypt and the tombs across Asia, all the way up to Europe, this is an art form that was basically a continuation of the craft that we had developed in Africa tens of thousands of years ago, possibly hundreds of thousands of years ago. So we've got the Apollo 2 stones, which is the first image there, on those two pieces of rock. And that was found in Namibia, and it's dated between 25,500 to 25,300 BCE. Wow. Yeah, and almost 28,000 years old. And it was actually drawn onto the rocks using charcoal. All right, so it's been charcoaled onto those two pieces of stone or pieces of rock. So that's Namibia over almost 28,000 years ago. And then the second piece that we have is a vase, and this one has been decorated, as you can see, with some large panels, and it's been divided up into patterns. And, you know, these patterns may have actually symbolized something to the people at the time. It may have symbolized the settlement of the land by the men or the women who were there. It could be showing the borders of the fields and the villages. It could be showing the waterways that's going through. And in the center of the panel, we can see this majestic figure of a goat. See the goat? There's the head, there's its foot, there's its other foot. And so, you know, we've got this goat and it's omnipresent in both its wild or domesticated form. And, you know, these are shapes that you can trace in here. They've got the triangle, there's the diamonds, there's the circles, all of these small details. And this piece here is dated, hi, what's that figure there? Hang on, is it, sorry, there's a zero missing there, making it 42,000, but I think it's supposed to be, yeah, sorry. So it's dated 4,200 to 3,500, that should be BCE. Now we can see from this that, you know, 6,000, 7,000 years ago, our ancestors have created all these different shapes, you know, rectangles, circles, diamonds, you know, arches. Look at the creativity and the design and the shapes that have gone into this particular motif. And then we're also incorporating animals into the design as well. That's been so creatively and artistically done. Oh, and these are the horns of the goat as well. You can see it's a big exaggerated horn here of the goat. And so you can see where we got our inspiration from as well, our art form inspiration from. And here we have the Great Hall of the Bulls, and this is found in France, dating 15,000 to 30,000 BCE. This is a rock art painting that was found in France. So you can see that our people have been painting and leaving evidence of their artistic skills in caves, on rocks, on pottery. You know, think about the skill that is involved in making this huge vase. And then not only did they understand, you know, the materials that would be needed in order to make the vase and to make it, but look at the beautiful design that they finished it with as well. And here you can see very clearly the artists are depicting some of the animals that were around during their time. I can see, you know, obviously we've got the cow with the bull horns here, looks like a horse in the background there. This looks like another four-legged creature down here as well, possibly something else there, and a couple of creatures maybe here as well. And so, you know, this is a beautiful, beautiful piece of art, even in today's standards, but it goes back 17,000 years ago. Wow. We are an ancient people, family, an ancient people. Here's another beautiful piece of artifacts that has been found in the region of Iran. And this is this dates back to the Elamite era, and it's a dish, and you can see all these geometric shapes all over it. And yeah, it's the Elamite era, the time when the city of Susa, that's the modern day southwest Iran, was the great city at the time. And sadly, you know, when we have these great cities, these great empires, they come under constant attack. And the city of Susa saw countless invasions, countless sackings during its history. And it's a history that spanned almost 6,000 years. And look at the design, look at the checkered design that's painted on this bowl. And what are these, two chessboards, you know, or is it a prayer mat? Or, you know, what do you think it is? And then look at all of these, I think they're chevron shapes and all of these really interesting designs. The symmetry as well. Look, yeah, they've got the symmetry, like they're mirroring what's on the opposite side of the board as well. These draft boards, chess boards, Freemason style, you know. What do you think it is? And what do you think these tassels are as well? You know, this is what their archaeologists and anthropologists do. They sit down in a room and they examine and they look at it under a microscope, and then, you know, they determine what the story is that our ancestors were painting onto, you know, for example, if it's this piece, this bowl, and they come up with this whole ideology about what it's all about. Look at this X in the middle here as well, this cross in the middle. And if you put a line through the middle here, yeah, it's like a mirror reflection, isn't it? On both sides. Wow, this is really talented stuff, and it's all been done by hand as well. Let me see what you've got to say about it in the chat. Yes, Mama Adwa, we know Africa and Asia makes sense, but not the Middle East. There is no Middle East. That geographic location is northeastern Africa. Absolutely, Sister Betty. Rise up, high five to that. I'm going to start calling. I don't think I was calling the Middle East. I think maybe I said they said it's the Middle East. But yes, it is indeed northeastern Africa. We have both types right here in America. Those are the Negroid round face type and the elongated facial type. Yes, we do, don't we? The genes are very strong and have lasted through all of these generations. The Honorable Drusilla Dungji documented this in her book, Wonderful Ethiopian of the Ancient Kushite Empire, 1926. I've got to find that one. Thank you, Annie. Thank you so much for that. Betty, where is Mesopotamia in Africa? This makes no sense. It's in northeastern Africa, the region that they call the Middle East, that we're pointing out is just northeast Africa. So beautiful artwork. Yes, it is indeed. Betty, yes, these lands were called Western Asia. I think it represents heaven and earth duality. Thank you, Betty. Yes, there is that duality, isn't there? Yeah, as above, so beneath. Yeah. Ah, thank you. Yeah, I'm not surprised these demons inappropriately cover up our history. Oh, it's such a big cover up. But you know, let's remember that our ancestors weren't stagnant. They didn't just stay in Africa. So when we find, you know, pieces of art that just are clearly of African origin, you just have to look at the culture of today's African art. And, you know, when I look at it, I can see the African artistic footprint all over this, or handprint all over this. Yes, duality, as above, so beneath. And yeah. Oh, right. So this is, as I said, a dish that goes back to the Elamite era and the Susa Empire. And it's at least 7,000 years old. And just a reminder, in terms of the region of Mesopotamia, northeast Africa, that whole Black Arabia that covers, you know, from Turkey to Iraq to Iran and all those so-called Arab nations there. It has a lot of significance in terms of our Black history. And that book that I referred to earlier, The Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam, it actually does quite a bit of work to explore, you know, the historical and cultural connection between Africa and Arabia. And it talks about how it was the Black Africans who are the origins of those Arab populations and of the early civilizations and religions in that region. And if we look at the geology, as I've touched on, geologically, it is just an extension of Africa. Just as Sister Betty and Brother Kwame and others are saying in the chat, the region that they're trying to separate from Africa and call it Arabia is just an extension of Africa. It was one landmass before before it separated itself when the split happened, how many millions of years ago? It might have been about 5 million years ago that this split happened and a bit of sea come through the middle there. But you put that back together and you can see it was just one landmass. You can see how it just fits snugly back together before that drift, okay? And so we would have had Africans who were living in the heart of Africa, those who ventured out, as you can see here, they ventured out to Asia, they ventured out to Europe and Australia, ventured out to Southern America, some went by boat to Southern America. There are the currents, remember, that can just take people quite very easily from parts of Africa, from West Africa, say, to the southern parts of America. And our ancestors often sailed around the coast of Africa as well. And they sailed around these regions, and we've, in earlier episodes, provided evidence of their ability to navigate the seas and to sail around the world. So, you know, in terms of the geology, this was one landmass 5 to 6 million years ago. And it is an effort to divorce this region that they call Arabia from Africa, while they call it the Middle East. But the original people of this region were indeed Africans. Now, another interesting concept that's actually come up from reading that book as well is that the term that's come up is Afrabia. Afrabia, and that's a term that's used to emphasize the cultural and geographical unity between Africa and Arabia. Afrabia. And that transcends political boundaries. So Afrabia, so, you know, the region of Arabia is as much African as Africa was back in the days. And the early humans who traveled into Arabia, who knows, it could date back millions of years ago. All right, so we don't really know how old we really are, but what we do know is that in the region of Afrabia, there were early human populations there that had migrated from Africa, and the archaeological and genetic evidence actually supports this. Okay, so this diagram here talks about the early human migration and dispersal and the routes that our ancestors took when they dispersed around the globe. Okay, and we can see that from Africa, they went up into Arabia via the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Levantine corridor around 70,000 years ago. There's the times on there. And the archaeogenetics show that modern human diversity traces its migration back from Africa to the Middle East, or to Afrabia, or to Northeast Africa. All right, and it's really important to point that out, because some archaeologists, we know the ones, are trying to claim that here is the origin of civilization and humanity. When, if you know your history, they can't claim that Mesopotamia or, you know, anywhere in Northeast Africa, or even if they want to call it the Middle East, is not the origin of humanity. Humanity came from Africa, was in Africa for millions of years before then migrating outwards and dispersing ourselves across the globe, right? And there are these archaeogenetics traces that evidence this as well. Okay, on to the next slide. When you look at this, you probably think of ancient Persia, yeah? And Persia was the name also that was given to Iran. And obviously at different times, it was known by different names. And Persia is among, the oldest regions, the same region that they try and claim to be the oldest, but it's not the oldest. You can say it is among the oldest, but certainly not as far as old as Africa when it comes to it being inhabited. So this region would have been populated by, we don't know, I haven't come across and I haven't read the size of the population, so I'm not going to speculate on that, but there were certainly significant numbers of Africans who had populated the region of Iran when it was known as Persia. And there's archaeological sites in Iran, and they have established that human habitation dates back around 100,000 years to the Paleolithic age. And that during this time, there were semi-permanent settlements, and that these semi-permanent settlements were actually established, it says, before 10,000 BCE. Doesn't say how long before, but one minute is talking about human habitation dating back 100,000 years. I mean, it's so difficult for us, I think, most of us, to get our head around, how ancient we really are and how much evidence there is of how old we are as a people and the extent to which all of this has been hidden. If you know where to look, imagine you're finding it documented that there are archaeological sites in Iran that have established human habitation that dates back over 100,000 years. So one of the kingdoms as well was the ancient kingdom of Elam. And in this area, it was among, at the time, the most advanced of its time. It was an ancient settlement. And you've got the archaeological site at Kroga Bonut that dates back to 7,200 BCE. So there's an archaeological site of Chokha Bonut that dates back to 7,200 BCE. And how do they know that? Because they've actually uncovered some potted artifacts, and the artifacts have been carbon dated. Now, before parts of it was actually conquered by the Sumerians, later it was completely conquered by the Assyrians and then by the Medes. And then you had the Median Empire, 678 to 550 BCE. And that was followed by one of the greatest political and social entities of the ancient world, the Persian, the Achaemenid Empire, from 550 to 330 BCE, which was conquered by Alexander and later replaced by the Seleucid Empire, 312 to 63 BCE. Then you had the Parthia Empire from 247 BCE to 224 CE. Then you had the Sassanian Empire, 224 to 651 CE. All of that in succession. And then the Sasanian Empire, that was the last of the Persian governments to hold the region before the Muslim Arab conquest of the 7th century CE. So, just from that little bit of reading there that I took from the World Encyclopedia, about Persia. You can see all the different empires that have risen, that were conquered. You know, empires rise and empires fall. But we know that the original people of the region have a history that goes back about 100,000 years, and it's not up until about 7,000 BCE that we begin talking about the Elam Empire, the Sumerians, the Medes, the Median Empire, the Achaemenid Empire, when Alexandria came on the scene, the Seleucid Empire, Parthia, Sasanian Empire. So many empires have risen and fallen in that very same region. And we've got some images over here. If you remember the bracelets from our ancient women that go back, you know, tens of thousands of years, we went into some details about that in the last episode. There are some ancient prehistoric graves that have been found, and the skeletons were buried with their bracelets and with their seashells. And here we have, you know, a bit of a picture of an African woman wearing her bracelets, her seashell necklaces, as we do to decorate our arms and neck. And here we have an image of the immortal soldiers from Iran, just two of the 10,000 immortals who were the ones who unfortunately were at the forefront of fighting the wars, all these different wars that was waged against the empires. Their soldiers, the African soldiers, had to fight these wars. And there's so much that we can learn just from that passage that I read in the encyclopedia about the wars that were happening during that time. Also, during the time of these great empires, this is the sort of art that is being found and excavated. These are examples of some of the bowls, the plates, and the vases, you know, that are being excavated. And you can see the African identity and African print all over it. I can. Let me know if you can. And, you know, just like we made the plates, we also made, you know, these shields. You can see this is when the Bronze Age came into effect. So this is a Bronze Age era type of guard. And you can see he's got, you know, this tall bronze staff that he's using to stand guard at maybe the palace gates, or it could be, you know, a special religious site, but he's definitely standing guard. Look at how he's dressed, you know, look at his attire, look at how advanced and highly sophisticated, you know, our men were dressed. You can see he's got like a helmet on his head there, thrown over his shoulder. He's got, you know, wearing this material. It's probably pinned up here, as we still do in the traditional way in Africa today. He's taken off his shoes for comfort. Look, you can see his shoes are made out of leather. If you remember, in the last session, we were looking at some of the tools that our ancestors were using for actually skinning animals to make clothing, housing, and obviously shoes as well. Wow, you can see these men here with their long warrior staffs and, you know, what they'd put their bows and arrows in. So these were highly sophisticated societies. These were not primitive. So when we talk about our ancient prehistoric history, we're not talking about times when our ancestors were primitive. Far from it. We so often hear it suggested that, you know, our ancestors didn't create anything, didn't make anything. And look at what the evidence is showing us. Look at what the evidence is showing us, family. And these people have got a nerve to suggest that we've never made anything, never created anything. And you know, you would have to know how to smelt the metals and make the molds and to set all these things. And then the artists would need to know how to leave their mark all over it as well. Not only were we molding and shaping brass, but also, you know, clay and other metals as well. And we were making items for, you know, war, as well as, you know, kitchenware and practical, you know, implements as well. Wow. So today's Iran, well, it's a battle. There's a battle that's happening there right now. And we can see that from the history, from the passage that I read you from the World Encyclopedia, what is very clear is that from ancient times, it's been at a crossroads of constant conquest. So this whole area here is Northeast Africa. There's Africa, the North Africa, and East Africa. So this region is Northeast Africa. And as I said, it was all one land mass. You can see where it's just come apart. And it was one landmass in parts of Africa. And that is reflected very much in the artifacts as well. You can see, you know, the African cultural tradition stamped all over these pieces that were actually found in Iran. So in terms of the wars in the region, well, they would have had to have been a very successful society, because sadly, it's the most successful societies that tend to be targeted. There are the bullies of the world that want to take over and want to own and claim ownership of successful empires. The world is big enough. Why they don't just build their own society somewhere else? You know, I just never understand that. It's like with us a red eye in Jamaica. You see somebody with something, you'll want it, rather than go and build and make your own. Get away, fly. Your own. It's a fly, just fly right past me there. And so, yeah, we had these advanced societies and they attracted conquest. You know, Iran was described as being among most advanced of its time. What happened? It was conquered in part by the Sumerians, then taken over by the Assyrians, then absorbed later into the empires. And this was the pattern. And where there is wealth, where there is structure, where there is knowledge, we find invasion, you know, and this region experienced continuous cycles of war. Look at this. One of the oldest inhabited regions in that part of the world goes back, human habitation goes back over 100,000 years. And it was home to advanced civilizations like Iran, 9,000, just under 10,000 years ago. And it has been repeatedly experiencing a succession of invasions from the Sumerians, the Assyrians, the Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, the Parthians, then the Assassinians, and now the, go away, I keep using, now the Arab empires. And yeah, its location was critical really for trade, because trade would come from Africa through the northeastern region, it would go through Iran, you know, to other parts of the world. And it was a very prosperous region, and it still is. thousands of years later, it still is a very prosperous region, and it still is a region that is experiencing power struggles, wars right now, you know, and it's not random. It's been going on for thousands of years, and the war is just about controlling the trade routes, as we know, controlling these trade routes. The war is about controlling the trade routes. It's about controlling the resources on the land. You know, back in the day, cities like Susa, highly advanced society, established governance. We can see from the arts that they had a very sophisticated society, and it was a region that just sat in between Africa, Asia, and beyond. And so it was, yeah, a critical location. So, hey, when we say that history has been erased, replaced, or rewritten, what this history shows us is that that can happen not just through ideas, but through conquest, through occupation, through placement of ruling powers. Or it can happen, history can happen because populations get absorbed into other cultures and other identities coming later on. And that's certainly, you know, the situation now. So, but the land itself, that's not lacking in history. The land itself is full of history. As I pointed out a couple of the archaeological sites that they're digging at the moment, you know, and the land is full of history, probably too much history. There's no lacking of history in this region, okay? A huge amount of history. Turkestan, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, all around here. Huge amount of African history if we go back into ancient time. But as I've pointed out, the land has been conquered again and again and again. And the history is still there. The history hasn't disappeared, but it does get buried. It gets buried under these different names. It gets buried, you know, because these new conquerors build on top of some of the ancient empires, because some of these new conquerors actually deliberately destroy the ancient empires and the evidence of it. And so, you know, the history, it may disappear. They may try and erase it, but it's just a matter of time before it pushes itself back up again. This is why we're finding, you know, all of this history. And it was during the era, basically, of all of these perpetual wars that we had the 10,000 immortalized figures. And the story behind that, one of the stories is that, you know, the Persians had an army of 10,000. And if one died, 10 died, whatever, they would replace that one or that 10 with another 1 or 10 soldiers. So they would always have an army of 10,000. And, you know, this wall art is a tribute to those 10,000 soldiers. They've basically effectively just been immortalized into stone. And we can see that these are the elongated facial shape Africans who have been immortalized in stone. But even though they've been immortalized, they're still speaking to us. You know, we can still read a lot into, you know, who they were, you know, what sort of society they must have been part of. And we can see, you know, from the way that they're standing, you know, their right foot forward, each of them, the way that they're dressed, their attire, etc. They were a very highly organized society. They were likely to be very skilled. Look how they're all holding that tall staff exactly the same way. You know, they're look at their garments that they're wearing, the uniformity, of it. Look at the detail in the design. You see the same sort of detail in the design that we were looking at in the bowls. We can see it here in the fabric. So these were highly civilized societies. They were spinning their own yarn, they were making their own clothes, and they were designing patterns into the material. There was order. It must have been a powerful society as well to have an army of 10,000 during that time. We can see uniformity. We can see, this is a society where it appears that there must have been chaos or anything like that. Look how serious they look. Look how confident and calm and composed they look as well. No one can look back into our history, just from looking like this and say that we were primitive and we were just surviving. These are depicting some of the 10,000 immortalized Persian soldiers. And look at the complexion of those soldiers. Look at their elongated facial types. Look at their beards. You can see that they are the taller Africans from Northeast Africa. Remember, in the beginning, we said that the book had identified two main groups of Africans: the short-statured, round-faced, negroid, curly hair type, and then the taller, dark-skinned Africans with straighter hair and elongated faces. There we are. So this glazed wall is actually telling us a lot about what was happening during their time. And we already have documented evidence about all the different empires, the wars, invasions. And so this speaks volumes as well now about who the people were during those times, how they'd organized militarily, how they tried to control their territory, how they tried to protect their territory. We can see from the dress, the cultural pride that there must have been. Look how they dressed to go to war. Look how they identified themselves when they went on. So they could easily, identify each other on the battlefield. They could easily distinguish from the enemy because, if they look the same as the enemy, they probably end up killing each other on the battlefield when the fighting's really fierce. But with this sort of uniformity in dress, it would have been easy for them to identify each other on the battlefield. Here we are again, more of the immortals or royal guards of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. And these are the groups of Africans that were described as having the elongated facial features. Let's keep it moving because there's so much to get through, as always. Here we have, in this image, a collection of ancient pottery vessels. And it's said that they are from Susa in Iran. And it dates back to approximately 3000 BC. This one here dates back to 4200 to 3500 BCE. And basically, it's a collection of painted ceramics from the Chalcolithic period. And these vessels include beakers, bowls, decorated with all these beautiful geometric patterns and shapes and designs. Some of them have got stylized animals on them as well. We saw that and looked at that quite closely a bit earlier. And here we have another one here. Here we've got a stylized animal on here as well, on this one here. And, quite often these were actually, this is full of beautiful things as well. And these were drawn freehand. Wow. These designs were done freehand. And to me, it just looked like your traditional African art style, your traditional African jugs and bowls that have been decorated with all of these complex arrangements of hand-painted designs. I can just imagine rows of probably women and some men sitting together as a community, and they've got their bowls, you know, and they're painting their designs on the bowls to make them look beautiful. It's in the same way that they would beautify themselves, beautify their houses on the outside. And the traditional African art style is to hand paint and to decorate bowls, jugs, houses, you know, beautiful, beautiful. So you've got here a blending of all sorts of shapes. And so, you know, they could even be teaching in schools all these different shapes that Africans actually invented. Look at all of these shapes. Look at the cross on there that goes back, you know, 7,000 years. Look at the designs in all of this. The triangles, the diamond shapes, the stripes, the chevrons, the circles, concentric circles with the crosses in the middle. Another one there, isn't there? You know? And again, visual evidence of the talent, the skills, and the sophistication of the societies of that time. Now, like I said, this is African artwork printed all over it. What do you think, family? Let me see what's been said here. Karen says, beautiful. Big up, Brother Kwame, as well. Sister Afri-Jamo's in the house. Good to have you in the house. Yeah, man. Sister Emma's in the house. Yes, good to see you, Dede. Sister Afri-Jamo, more love to you. You know, we start an hour earlier now. So, yeah, join us an hour earlier. Let's see what else we got here. Sister Afri-Jamo is greeting us from Ghana. D. Buff is saying, how do they determine age? Carbon stamp? Yeah, they have this carbon dating mechanism, and they also use the ground as well. It's like the deeper they go down, like every layer of earth, you know, they measure it, and it might represent X number of years. And the deeper down they go, the deeper they dig, the deeper they find, you know, these vessels or drugs or God, they know that it belonged to an earlier empire. And so there's different like stratified layers of soil that they use, and they go down. Yes, they do fear black success. Africans are geniuses, absolutely. Look at the works. Look at the works. Yeah, yeah, we have been taken advantage of. It's so sad. Papa Stevie's in the house. Yo, anyone read Black Roots Science, Volume 1 and 2? No, but I must do. You recommending it? Papa D says, hold on, sister, with the origin thing and study our Dogon peeps. They tell of the true origins and the aim of this planet. That's another level, Papa D. I'm not even there yet. I'm just walking the earth at the moment. Yeah. Papa D says the British Museum is full of original wall paintings that show the original occupants always study hair when looking at ancient depictions. Nah, me. Rise up, Sister Shanice. The African presence is all over the world, not just in Africa, but Europe, America, Australia, and Asia. Yes, it is. Arabia is little Africa in Asia. Yes, the pictures are so realistic, for real. You know, thank you, Sister Karen. Papa D says, same with Arabia and those other British created countries, they all reside on the African peninsula. Yes, I encourage you to search Google, for example, and ask who are the original Arabs, and then go to the images. Okay, thanks for that. That's homework for everybody. Check out books by our late great African scholars, Papa Ivan van Sertima and Baba Ranonko Rashidi. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for your comments. Good to have you locked in. Look at these beautiful pieces of art. Oh my God, absolutely wonderful. And we took our artistic creativity, not just on bowls, but even in terms of our architecture, our furniture, and our designs. I came across this article that's entitled Ancient Gemstone Furniture was discovered in a fire temple in the ancient region of Vaigol in Iran. Wow. So basically, archaeologists who were doing some digging in Iran, they found a set of Jimsum furniture, including a carved table. It looks like that could be the carved table and the chairs. So there's carved tables and chairs that they found, and they discovered this during the archaeological dig in Iran. Now they've actually gone down quite some layers here, and they've come to a foundation. Yeah. And if they were to continue digging below this foundation, they'd probably find an earlier civilization than this as well. But I'll just read a little bit of the article. It says, according to the Research Institute of Cultural Heritage and Tourism, available evidence reveals the furniture was utilized for ancient rites during the Sassanid Empire, that's 224 to 651. The artifacts were unearthed in a fire temple in Vigol, some 10 kilometers north of Iran Bidgol in Kashan, by a collaborative team of archaeologists from Isfahan and Tehran universities. Iran, during the Sasanian control, experienced enormous accomplishments in Persian civilization in many areas. According to experts, that during the Sassanid era, the art and architecture of the nation experienced a general renaissance. The Sassanian kings had established an administration that was so efficient that they were able to carry out enormous irrigation, town building, and industrialization schemes. Iran's richness was perhaps never hidden during the Sassanian era. It was the most serious opponent of Rome and afterward of the Byzantium. The dynasty was destroyed by Arab invaders during a span from 637 to 651. That was the period of the 14-year war. So we can see the table here. Maybe some chairs would have been over here. Were these the feet of some columns? Let's have a look at the next slide to see what it may have looked like. So in image 2 and 3 here, you can see the sort of columns that existed back on the continent of Africa. These are the columns from the Luxor temple. You see they have their basics built on a concrete foundation. And, you know, Africans just love their columns. Even all over Africa where I've been and where I am now, I can see these wonderful columns, you know, that people put in the front of their houses, you know, in their houses. It's an ancient African architectural style. And here we have a couple of columns from the temple complex in Luxor. And these are the remains, are they not? Or evidence that there probably were constructing columns in this region for buildings at the same time, because this is the base. And you can look at the design, those rigid, round stone design structures. Look, you've got that stone slab that it sits on as well. And yeah, these could have been used for columns. And if it was the case, then here probably there would have been a magnificent ancient building with these beautiful columns. And these would have been the feet of those columns. Even if it was just table legs here, you can see that the structure, the design structure actually existed. And the architectural style was already in existence for them to be using it for some sort of columns that they would be building all over the region. And so what does this tell us about that era of ancient African history? It clearly indicates that, you know, our ancestors took the knowledge and the skills of column building with them from North Africa over to Northeast Africa. So here is evidence that the knowledge had traveled, their stylized design, the symmetry, the way that they work. You know, they had knowledge how to build these supporting structures, how to build the foundations for those supportive structures as well. And, you know, this is quite some discovery. They understood the materials to use, the durability of the materials. Look at how solid that is. That ain't no fenke piece of concrete that's been put together. This is some solid structures. We can tell, and look right in there, you know, you've got the table. So all this concrete had been poured on top of, you know, the remnants of what was, you know, at least the table height worth of artifacts. Wow. So this is, you know, the earth that they had to dig through and the concrete they had to dig through in order to reveal all of this. And all of this and the different stratified earthen levels and the excavation levels would have helped them to determine, help the archaeologists to determine the age of these pieces and when it's likely that it was being occupied back in history. So there's loads of archaeological teams all over the world that are digging up our history, who are uncovering evidence of our existence, uncovering evidence of what our cities may have looked like, how we might have built them. You know, they're aware of the different phases of occupation over time because they can analyze that through the different excavation layers and the stratified earth. And they can, you know, see the grandness of, you know, how we built. This might have been like a courtyard. And in the courtyard, you know, you've got your stone tables, like a big garden where big round seating area where people would sit and they would talk and they would philosophize. And, you know, it would have been a wonderful, wonderful experience. And we saw how the guards dressed. So we can only begin to imagine how the women and how the other men in the society must have dressed. And if the guards are looking so regal, what would the kings have been looking like? How would they have been dressed in? And then obviously being a spiritual people as well, there would have been the religion, the religious side of the society. And so you would have had, you know, all those ceremonial priests and whatever titles they had, they would have had their regalia as well. You would have had the elite that would have had their building structures. If you're putting columns like that in the courtyard, for example, imagine what the grand houses and the palaces must have looked like. The amount of destruction that has clearly happened to try and erase the evidence in the presence of our ancestors in these regions has been considerable. So, but, you know, history and archaeology, once you've dug it up, they may have tried to hide it, you know, but when you do the digging and you come across these sorts of articles, you come across these sorts of discoveries, it's just phenomenal. It really is. It's like our ancestors have managed to resurface and communicate with us. So yeah, these are the sorts of structures, family, that we were building thousands of years ago, prior to our enslavement, that they just like to focus on. Yeah, evidence of skilled workmanship, planning, organization, great construction techniques. you know, an understanding of architect beyond the kind of little huts that they want to suggest that that's all we knew as a basic shelter. Yeah, we had our wonderful mud huts that was built out of the red earth and brick, and some of it would have been decorated beautifully like those pots were. It would have looked so colorful, so beautiful and amazing. And now around it, you would have had your city walls. There would have been a huge, you know, entrance to the city wall. We can only begin to imagine what some of these early cities and kingdoms would have looked like. And one thing I can say with absolute certainty, that it certainly was not and would not have been and could not have been the work of a primitive people. These are the works of people who were highly advanced. They had huge amounts of knowledge. They had engineering skills, design skills. They knew how to express their culture, and they were expressing that culture from Africa to Afrabia. And they had been developing these skills in Africa long before they brought it to Afrabia as well. So what we're looking at when we see these kind of remains, it's not just ruins. We're looking at the evidence of a people who knew how to build, who knew how to organize cities and kingdoms, and they knew the importance of leaving behind a legacy in stone. Yes, indeed. So here's the article if you want to look it up for yourself. Archaeologists uncover ancient skeleton at 7,000-year-old Cheshmeh-Ali mound in Iran. And this is another historical excavation that's been happening for well over a century. They've been digging for over a century, and this ancient site is located in Tehran, and it's considered to be one of the most important sites for understanding the prehistory of the Iranian Central Plateau. See the importance that they put to our history and our period of our history? Now, when this site, I think this is a site that, this is the site, they say, that contains layers of habitation that stretch from the Neolithic and Chalcolithic periods, that's 6,200 to 3,000 BC, through the Parthian and the Islamic eras as well. So this is going back just under 10,000 years, this archaeological site. And at this site, they've actually found a number of skeletons. They found 173 graves. And wouldn't I like to see the results of the DNA scrapings of those skeletons? But what they have told us is that these prehistoric burials actually featured bodies placed on their right side in a contracted position, and they would be facing the sunrise or the sunset. And they were frequently accompanied by grave goods like beads, necklaces, copper pins, and iconic painted pottery. So this is where they've been finding all of those wonderful pieces of architects in these tombs. Now, the Cheshmeh-Ali site is where they find a particular type of and style of pottery. That's the fine reddish orange ceramic decorated pots with the black geometric animal and rare human motifs. So that's at the Cheshmeh-Ali site. And, you know, this is also giving us evidence of what their daily life would have been about. You know, our beautiful women walking around with those pots on their head. They would have been making those pots. Some would have been at the spinning wheel, spinning the yarn. Some would be keeping livestock. Some would be, you know, catching and skinning the animals. Some would be using the animal hide to make clothing, shoes, slippers. shelter. You know, there would have been the ovens for baking the bread, the ovens for the pottery. You know, you can get an idea of what the daily activity of this advanced, very creative society would have been like from the archaeological discoveries in these tombs. And we mustn't underestimate, family, our greatness. Here is one of the skeletons that is in that crouch position that's been uncovered. And this is someone who's uncovering the skeleton, and so-called archaeologists. These are just grave diggers and grave robbers, really, but they give them a fancy name of archaeologists. Anyway, they dated this burial place to be around 4,300 BCE, and it's at the Cheshmeh-Ali site in Iran. And here they found pottery shards, fragments of pottery, basically the remnants of what these people have been buried with, that is deep in the layers of where they've been digging. And so we know that they're quite ancient. Here we have a cup that was discovered 4,000 years old, and we can see that there are human-like figures. And I think these could be like, I don't know, look like children to me, all holding hands. These are their heads, you know. Or it could be just the design, but this is a 7,000-year-old pottery bowl. And that was also unearthed at the Cheshmeh-Ali site. And that, yeah, it could be an adult, children playing. What does it look like to you? They're holding hands, children holding hands and playing, running along, or is it something else? What we do know is that it's very ancient. Here's another bowl. This is the bowl that was on my flyer. It's a pottery vessel, also found at the Cheshmeh-Ali site, dated 5,000 to 4,500 BC, over 7,000 years old. And obviously, you know, these sorts of items would have been an important part of the daily life of the people. Some would have had water, some would have had food. They might have been used as jewelry bowls. We can think of 101 things that it would have been used for. And, you know, some of these jugs and items as well, some of them even had writing on them. And so we know from that the people of that time, 7,000 years ago, were able to read, they were able to write, and that the Proto-Elamite people had their own cuneiform scripts. And yeah, they were also capable of making bronze items. I showed you that guard. And you can just imagine the prosperity of the time. And this is also the era, they believe, when the huge red ziggurat was constructed as well. That's basically the largest and tallest structure in southern Iran. And it's of a style of pyramid. So here we have our beautiful sister queen modeling how the African women would walk with the pots on their head. It might have had water in it or something else. And what we can see from this family, from this beautiful sister queen and this ancient piece here, yeah, is how the women of ancient Iran managed to sustain and retain the African culture. And we can see also that despite centuries between them, the culture still exists. Wow. So, you know, this is clearly a traditional African jug. Tell me if you think it's something different, family. The design on it, again, we've got these really interesting designs of what could be goats. We know a lot of African people, they had their goats, they have their sheep, they have their herds, you know, and it would have been an important part of life. It might have been an important part of trade as well. These were all handmade, handicrafts, fire pitted maybe. Beautiful, beautiful, rich cultural pieces that may have had some important meaning at the time. Let's move along and take a look at some more of these ancient discoveries as well. We can see this is also from the 4th millennium, and again, discovered in Iran. Look, it's really interesting the way they keep drawing these goats. It must have been a style at the moment with the long horns. Yeah, and then look at all of these beautiful designs, the checkered design, the diamond shapes, the beautiful outline figure of the African woman, maybe walking with her animals. You know, that could be a horse that she's walking with. That could be the sea, the water in the background there, the river. Beautiful, beautiful. And they found all this from the same archaeological complex known as Tepe Siak. And basically, it's 2 hills, and they're about half a kilometer apart. And it covers 2 well-known cemeteries in Iran. And they have been excavating these for about a century now. And what they found is that there were 6 main phases of occupation. And I went through the phases of occupation, you know, in the wars that were replacing the older settlements. You know, evidence again of the great works of our ancestors. And so the oldest settlement, that's been identified in the North Hill. And then the second period, the villages, it's been moved from the northern side, and they would have lived in houses made of irregular shaped mud bricks, but they were capable of making ceramics, baths that resemble baskets. They buried their dead ceremoniously. They painted them red. Remember the red ochre? They laid them down in their crouch position under the floors of their houses. It was a custom, apparently, at that time to bury the dead under the floors of their houses, they believe. But maybe, you know, it would have been a cemetery and the people would have been buried on their land. And later on, people may have built houses on top, not knowing that there were people buried underneath. But definitely master artists, just like today all over Africa, you've got the master sculptures and artists and painters. Wow, masters in fine art and in building, making and creating everyday objects. And like I said, this goes back, you know, for 6,000 years, more than 6,000 years. And these items were found not in Africa, but in Iran. But remember, back then, yeah, Northeast Arabia was an extension of Africa. You can find these in the Louvre Museum in Paris. Whether they're on display or not right now, I don't know, but that's where the pictures were taken from. Here we have a beautifully decorated jug that belongs to the Germa tribe in Niger. And over here, we have the beaker that we've looked at previously that dates back 4,200 BC. Look at the continuity of the culture. Look at the stripes that you've got at the top of the jug, and, you know, the diamond shapes going round, you know, all these beautiful designs that some of our people are still doing today. And so all of these intricate kind of geometric patterns, the horizontal bands, the vertical stripes at the top that come down, all of this is, you know, obvious that the artists pay attention to, you know, their works. The checkered, there we go, we've got the checkered patterns on it again, the diamond shape, circles, all sorts of shapes and designs. And it's good to see that this ancient tradition hasn't been lost, because this is a modern piece, and this is a very ancient piece. We can see, that the African tradition, the deep-rooted tradition, has survived over time. Here we have another beautiful piece that I came across. I'm going to fly through these last couple of slides now. This is from the old Elamite period, and you can find that in the National Museum of Iran. This is Iraq's, this is an ancient structure. It's actually based in Iraq. It's the great ziggurat, but as you know, Iran and Iraq are neighbors. They've been divided into two countries now, but at one time probably with one just great expanse of land. And it's a stepped pyramid. And wow, this is dated to be from approximately 4,000 to 500 BC, a monumental structure. And it's one of 32 ziggurats that's known of in the area, 28 in Iraq and 4 in Iran. Because of time, I'm going to move swiftly along. And to say that if the lands, the people, the culture, and the evidence all points back to Africa, then the real question is, what else have we been taught to see separately? Just like our brother Thomas asked in the beginning, I think said, isn't Mesopotamia or somewhere else or da-da-da? We're taught to see all these different regions around the world as separate from Africa. But the whole planet at one time was occupied by Africans. So, as we bring today's session to a close, what we have seen in this episode today is not just the movement of the people across the land, but we've seen the movement of our culture across the land as well, from Africa to Arabia. We've seen from the ancient Arabia, the ancient city of Susa, the wider Near East. Our ancestors, when they arrived, they didn't arrive empty-handed. They carried their ways of thinking with them, their ways of creating. They brought their ways of being with them, and they left that culture behind. And it's evident for us even to see today. They left it and their mark in stone. They've left their mark in these beautiful pots. They've left evidence of their existence, on tiled walls, in the ziggurats that they built. So, despite the conquest, despite the displacement, despite the centuries of rewriting and renaming our history, our beautiful culture didn't disappear, it survived. And this is what we call cultural resistance. Not always allowed, not always written in text, but preserved quietly, powerfully in the things that could not be erased. Wow. So in the geometric designs, repeated across time, in the art carved into monuments that we've been looking at the paintings on the walls, at the vessels, in the symbols that still echo of our traditions today. This is continuity, it's memory. This is a people who refuse to be erased, not just through resistance in battle, but through resistance in culture. Because when a people preserve their identity in their art, in their patterns, in their way of life, they ensure that even when history is rewritten, the truth still speaks. Arabia was never separate from Africa at all. Certainly hope that you agree with me on that after listening to today's episode 11 in our series. Let me end it there. As always, the time just races by so quickly. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed today's session. Join me again for episode 12 next strong, same time. I've got more archaeological evidence that I have uncovered that I want to share with you. I want to thank every one of you for being with me today. Let me see if there's any final messages before we go. Papa Diva said, same with Arabia and those other British created countries, they all reside on the African peninsula. Yes, indeed. And I encourage you to search and Google, for example, and ask, who are the original Arabs? And go to the images. I read that. And Karen said, the pictures are so realistic. Just imagine, and they're thousands of years old. Arabia is Little Africa and Asia. Yes, Sister Shanice, the African presence is all over the world, not just in Africa, but Europe, America, Australia, and Asia. Yes, indeed. I think I've read some of these messages before. British Museum, yes, it's full of our artifacts. Oh, the Dogon peeps. Yes, I've read these ones before. Let's scroll down some more. Right, let's go down. Right, this type of artwork is never created by Caucasians. That's right. They don't create them today, and they never created them back then either. But our ancestors, the descendants of those ancestors across the continent continue to create these sorts of artwork today as well. De Buffalo and the Soul Charesse says, gorgeous and high-tech looking. Imagine who could eat off or from those items. Mama says, don't touch my good china. It look too good to eat out of. Sister Shanice, these are beautiful stuff that our ancestors made. Yeah, they really are. I see a swastika on one of the bowls. What was it called originally? Oh, well spotted, Jaris. Yeah, Papa D. Stevie says, Brother Thomas, how can we speak and write English and your mother does not worship the God that your great-great-great-mother did just 4 generations ago? Yeah, we can see how much can change in just a few generations. Okay, all right, family. I want to thank you so much for taking part in the presentation today, for watching, for your comments. Thank you all so much. Apijamo says, absolutely fantastic in Iran. We Africans have been everywhere. Yes, indeed we have. Thank you, Papa D says, immense respect, sis. Great presentation. Thank you so much. Suma, good to have you in the house. Movement of Jah people across the Red Sea. Robert Nesta Marley. Ashe, definitely. Kwame says, brilliant, sis. Thank you. Glenroy says, Asante Shana, back at you. Thanks for tuning in, beloved. Rise up, Sister Wing. Great to have you in the house. Sister Berna says, brilliant. Thank you so much. Afrijamo, thanks a lot. Very important. Thanking each and every one of you. Karen says, bravo. Thanks for your encouragement. I must say, I was up at 5 this morning, putting the finishing touches on this presentation. I thought I'd have time to have a nap, but I didn't. And I was a bit tired, but once I got started, the tiredness didn't show. Karen, thank you. Sending healing prayers for our teacher, Dr. Clyde Winters, every time. The Kashiba says they reside on the African Teutonic plate. Yes, that is the geographic plate. Yeah, and they try and tell us that these places are separate, but it's not. It was very much part of Africa, still is part of Africa, and the history proves it. To every one of you who've tuned in today, thank you so much. Please do give me a thumbs up. Please do share the video, share the knowledge, and yeah, look forward to you joining me same time next Wednesday for episode 12. Sister Shanice,